What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel. Check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak on some comments made by Nick Young. Uh, he was on the podcast with Gil's Arena, right? And they were talking about Shea Gilgeous Alexander, and Nick went out and said that he think that Shea is on his way to being like the greatest point guard of all time. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Shea Gilgeous. I've done videos in the past where I just I just speak highly of him and his game and what I think about his game. And I'm very impressed with what he has done up to, this far as their championship run last year and what they're doing this year. I think like so far this season, I think they like 21-4, something like that, or 21-3. But I just think for Nick, I think it's a bit premature for Nick Young to go out and say that, that this guy is the greatest, on his way to being the greatest guard of all time. I think it's going to take some, it's going to take a little bit more time. I want to see a lot more from Shea. What I've seen so far, I really like. I like Shea when he was, I think when he first came into the league, he was with the Clippers, right? And I don't know how the Clippers let this kid get out of there, how they let him go, but I mean, that's a whole nother video. I just think the Clippers, they just a dysfunctional organization. But like I said, I just think that Nick is, I think Nick is being a bit premature. I don't know if these guys need to, if he really believe this, or sometimes people might say stuff just to get, just to get a rise out of people or start a conversation, and I like this kid, but I have a hard time comparing him to like any of the great guards of the past. Now, I just think it's too soon. And I'm just like everybody else. I'm really enjoying what I see him do on the court. I like the way he plays at both ends. And as far as like the chemistry on this team, on this OKC team, this OKC team is very deep. They are really stacked. I mean, I don't think any other team in the league has as much talent as OKC. But this kid, Shea Gilgeous, has a long way to go before I start comparing him to like Magic Johnson, or Isaiah Thomas, or Jason Kidd, or any of those guys. He won a championship. Don't get me wrong, and that's a big deal. And what they're doing right now, I think, is very impressive, right? But I had to just say that Nick Young is really just, I think he's just making himself a prisoner of the moment. Not that I think that this kid is not going to continue to have the success that that he's having right now. I just think he's locked in. I think his team is locked in. So I look forward to him having the kind of success that he's having, right? And it's a good thing what he's doing and what his team is doing for the league, because I think the teams around our league are going to really have to step up if you want to beat this team. If you want to beat OKC, you really going to have to step up, because they're dictating like you can't play that style that that the Golden State Warriors had, right? That small ball style wouldn't work against this OKC team. So in order to beat this OKC team, you're going to have to match them with either you're going to have to match them with size, or you're going to have a really strong defense, right? And so in the West, I see teams with that, I see the Spurs have the size to challenge them. As a matter of fact, the Spurs just recently beat them, because they have the size to challenge OKC. Also, I think in a 7-game series, I think that the Houston Rockets will be able to challenge them because of the size and the length that they have, so they'll be able to challenge, and so those are the teams in the West. Now, who if they made it, what team in the East I think would be able to challenge them? I think Detroit would be able to challenge them in the East, coming out of the East. And the reason why I say that, now that Detroit don't have as much length as this team, but they do, like, their defense to me reminds me of the old school Bad Boys, defense. They had some guys in there with Isaiah Stewart and hey, what's the other guy? The other big guy, man. This Detroit team is very defensively, like, they are imposing, and I think their style and the makeup of the Detroit team would really pose problems for this team, for the OKC team. I think they'll pose some issues for OKC, right, because of their defense. Now, scoring wise, I think Detroit will be able to hang in there too, like I said, because they have Cade Cunningham, their primary scorer. He wouldn't be I don't think he'll have issues with, a problem with getting the shot off and getting some good looks at the basket and stuff like that. But I'm looking forward to seeing OKC and what they're going to do as far as, like, defending their championship. They're making the league, in my opinion, they, like I said, they're making this league, the teams in this league, adjust to them, which I think is good for basketball. It just seems to me like basketball is going back to their old school way of playing, with, like, their mid-range is coming back. If you notice, like, the teams with the top, most of the teams with their top guards or their top scorers have really good mid-range games. When you think about OKC, you think about Detroit, you think about even Boston has a really good mid-range score. New York, Jalen Brunson is a really good mid-range scorer, and he goes to the basket, right? But Jalen Brunson to me is just too short. At 5'11", 6 feet tall, I just think Jalen Brunson is just too small of a guard, and it'll be easier for somebody to help out on somebody else and just or help and recover. It's just hard. He just had to work so hard, and he's not going to be efficient as somebody like a Shea Gilgeous. He's not going to be as efficient. So, yeah, I don't think it's time for this guy, Nick Young. I think he jumped out the window a little too soon when he said this guy's on. He's going to be one of the greatest guards ever. Just give him some time, man. Just enjoy the ride. Watch, enjoy what you're seeing out there. He playing some great basketball. His team is playing some great basketball, and yeah, man, I just, I don't know if they said this on the Gills Arena show just for content's sake, or if he really believe it. But either way, if it's just too soon, in my opinion. I know he had a good, really, really good run last year in the playoffs, right? And he showed in the playoffs and then in that championship, like what he was capable of. And then coming into this season, he picked up where he left off last season. And not only did he pick up, in my opinion, I think he's really stepped his game up. Because if you think about it, OKC Thunder, every night they get the best shot of whoever they playing. I don't care if they playing the Wizards, if they playing the Lakers, everybody that they play against, they getting their best shot because, people want to see if they real, And in order to beat OKC, you are going to have to step your game up. So you got to adjust to them. And with people adjusting to them and people stepping their game up, they have really, they really stepped their game up. So I'm looking forward to, like I said, man, this kid right here is just, it's going to be some real rivalries out there, some real rivalries. I got them going up against that kid Wembanyama. With the Spurs. If Wemby can stay healthy, that's the whole thing with him. Wemby is going to have to adjust his game, in my opinion, to be more to be more efficient. Operate closer to the basket. That's what I think from Wemby. But yeah, this guy, Shea Gilgeous, to me right now, just give it some time. He may get there. He's dominating. You can't deny that. But I just think it's a little bit too soon, to just give him, one of the. He's gonna be the greatest guard of all time. That's high praise, and a little bit too soon. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And with that being said, man, don't forget to leave a comment, and I'll check you all out in the next video. Peace.